professional level. This is why.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Baseball Recruiting Deep Dive Podcast. Today we're joined by an SEC coach, the biggest conference in college baseball. That's what they say. Even though Georgia Tech guy here, I don't know about that. We'll see. But we're joined by Karl Nonemaker, associate head coach from Auburn. Karl, thanks for joining us, and give us a little bit about your career in baseball and how you got to Auburn.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. Love to talk some baseball, talk some shop. I grew up in New Jersey and was fortunate just to have some great coaches all the way back to third grade through high school, and went on down to Vanderbilt to play my college baseball. Played a couple years of baseball after that in the minor leagues, and then started coaching in the fall of 2004. And I guess it's been about 20 years now of this coaching journey.
Yep.
And one of the cool things about the coaching journey is, um, got to go coach a couple years in high school, got to coach at a smaller Division I, enrollment wise, Monmouth University in New Jersey, and then spent some time at Old Dominion. So I've kind of seen the high school and then all different areas of the Division I landscape, and it's been a great experience to be around baseball really my whole
Yeah.
life.
Karl, let's talk a little bit about where you guys at in just in your schedule right now. Obviously, summer recruiting has pretty much come to an end. Do you guys shift? Like, are guys getting back on campus, going into individuals, or what's the plan right now?
Yeah, school started on Monday, and we always give that first week of school for guys to get cleared medically, and we open the field up for them to get any work in that they want. So, the guys are out getting anything they want voluntarily on the baseball field to get themselves ready. A lot of guys played ball in the summer, getting their bodies back going, and then we'll start Monday with our structured work for the fall. And it's basically our fall is basically 5 weeks of 8 hours a week where we're building up, and then 6 weeks of 20 hours a week where we're in full team practice. And the weather is great down here. So we usually build up through the month of September, and then we'll start our fall practice in the beginning of October, and we'll run until middle of November, really right before we head home for Thanksgiving break.
It's such a difference, I'm sure, from coaching at Monmouth. And like, obviously, I spent all the time in the Northeast. It's like, guys, get back. You got to go because you don't you don't know when that weather's going to get too nasty late in the fall.
Yeah, and they give you that flexibility, right? Every Division I school has a 45-day window that they get to declare based on what works best with not only their weather, but where are you at health-wise? Did you have any key players that were injured that you need to give a little more time in some year or another? How do you want it to work with recruiting? Obviously, recruiting opens up in the, second week or third week of September, and it goes for 4 or 5 weeks. Do you want to just practice during the week so you can recruit on the weekends? What are the positives and negatives? So there's a lot of flexibility to do it any way you want, but everybody has the same guidelines to how they can run it.
Karl, obviously, there's been just massive changes to college baseball in the last 3 years. The portal, NIL, and now you're talking, the House settlement and all that stuff. How much has your recruiting philosophy changed in the last 3 years, if it has? And, how is that impacting the high school player?
Yeah, I think the first thing is there has been a lot of uncertainty. And you guys in your jobs are going to hear that from people that you work with or from the community. There's high school families that really don't know what's going to happen, and really the truth is there's uncertainty everywhere. I feel like we've kind of said I don't know more than ever over the last 3 or 4 years, really since COVID, when roster numbers adjusted a little bit to make room for the extra years, and you never really knew each year how everything was going to continue to adjust. So we're starting to get a little bit more clarity, but we are still working through stages, and we're in the first year of kind of a new world. And for us, the biggest change has been rosters have been shrinking some since they got a little bigger during COVID. And then secondly, with a transfer portal and an NIL era, there's kind of a different way that some teams can put their rosters together. For us, it has changed a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're trying to get the most talented baseball players we can possibly get out of high school, the most versatile, the most athletic, just because of all the uncertainties
Yep.
from a roster standpoint. And then in the summer, we're trying to look at, okay, what's probably going to get drafted in our program, and who's graduating, and what are some really huge holes that we might need to fill and try to get some experience in a little bit more
Yep.
immediately. So I know from our standpoint, it's been probably 60% high school, 40%
Yep.
transfer portal. But we've still tried to have a really solid high school presence. And obviously your transfer portal kids usually leave a
Yep.
little quicker.
Yep.
And that's probably why that number gets higher. Sometimes they're there for 1 year, maybe two, and they're getting drafted or they're
Yeah.
graduating.
So how has that changed the way you guys are projecting and evaluating the high school player now? Is a kid has to be ready in year 1 or year 2, in your opinion, for an offer to, obviously be on the table, in that sense? Yeah.
For us,
Yeah.
great question. For us, definitely. Before the days of transfers, and you really had to have your minor leagues be in your
Yep.
program. And you could fill in with some junior college and things like that. But you would see teams bring in more freshmen, and then some would be ready to play, and then some would kind of phase in as their career got going. And normally those guys that phased in were maybe more of a recruited roster
Yep.
spot guy or a lower scholarship type player. And you knew, all right, this guy's not physically ready or he's not quite skilled enough, but we think we can get him to where he needs to be. So you always had guys kind of building within your program. And you still want that. You still want anybody that experiences being a part of your program to be better. In any
Yep.
business you're at, you want someone that's working for you to grow
Yep.
in it, and you want to feel like the players are developing and making the most out of all the time that they're investing, to be a baseball player. However, they have to be a little bit more ready to play, and you probably wouldn't recruit somebody that wasn't really, really close to being ready unless it was a special
Yeah.
situation.
I think that's kind of generally speaking what is happening with everywhere, Karl, is that just everyone's like, listen, if I can get a portal guy who's got 3 years under his belt and he hit 330 with 10 home runs or whatever it is, like the high school guy's got to be somewhat close to that, right? Like you're not just going to take a guy you think is vastly underskilled compared to a guy you can get in the portal.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you know, I know in a 35-man roster, you'd have 4 or 5 position players and 4 or 5 pitchers coming out of high
Yep.
school that you really felt were gonna make a
Yep.
big impact in your program at some point in time. And your hope would be that the nice thing about baseball, remember, can you imagine being soccer or football where, your freshman year, and obviously football started to bring guys
Yeah.
in at the break to get them
Yep.
more ready. But, you think about a soccer team where kids enroll in August and they play their first game a couple weeks later. The positive in baseball is we do have, really those 12 weeks that we
Yep.
were talking about where we can get on that field at least, 5 days a week or 4 days a week to try to grow some players. So you really do have 5 or 6 months of development you can have if you have the right player and you have the right mentality. And so the goal is to bring guys in out of high school that are going to be able to impact your team. And then where there's places that there still needs, to fill in a little bit closer to when kids
Yep.
enroll, knowing exactly what your needs are for that particular year, because the whole 5-year
Yep.
plan has changed a lot. When you'd used to see a coach get somewhere and they're building for the 3rd or 4th year, and now you see every year really matters and there's no building for anything, and you're trying to create some consistency with your program, and you can't be too young, and you have to be talented
Yep.
enough, so there's a balance
Yep.
there for sure.
Yeah, so, be curious to hear, how did you guys attack the summer in terms of recruiting? Was June a lot of portal slash JUCO, shift to high school guys in July? And even I'd be curious to hear what your plans are for the fall as well. Is it just Fort Myers, just Jupiter, or are you guys going to be doing a lot more?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. A lot of people don't always think about the draft, and there
Yeah.
it is right
Yep.
now, right? The draft has now been bumped back a few weeks. It's on All-Star weekend. So let's say an average class is 10 or 12 high school kids. There might be 5 or 6 of them that truly are going to have real opportunities
Yep.
in the draft, that they're going to have to think about. All right, now let's say you're getting some more transfers, so you're getting some older kids. Let's say obviously your seniors are going to graduate, but let's say you've got 10 juniors. So you might have every one of those juniors in your program that's played has a legitimate chance to get offered pro contracts, maybe at an
Yep.
SEC team. And then you've got 5 or 6 incoming players. So really, you're thinking about the transfer portal and your own players, but then you also kind of have this
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
that you're just waiting on, this event that you're waiting on, that it's hard to get too far down the road with other rosters when you're still waiting to figure out what's going to happen in the draft and getting your roster set for that coming year. So we spend some time in the transfer portal in June. If we can get out for a weekend here or there, late June, early July, we do, to see some high school kids to start evaluating that next class of
Yep.
rising juniors. And then we spend a week or 10 days figuring out the
Yep.
draft and what implications that has on the roster, and then what other transfer portal stuff needs to happen there. And then at the end of the summer, once that's settled, might go out and see some more high school kids. And with how much effort goes into your roster and the draft and the transfer portal in the summer, the end of our summer and then probably most of our fall would be focused on high school kids. And then when we're not on the road, now we can bring kids in on official visits in the
Yep.
fall. And so any weekend that maybe we're not on the road recruiting, we might have a handful of kids on an official visit for
Yeah.
football week.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to what you were saying there, Carl, and going back to all this uncertainty that you talked about earlier is, the draft's 20 rounds now, so not nearly as many guys are getting drafted. But like you said, Carl, at an SEC school, I mean, legitimately, any one of your starters who's draft eligible is like probably a good enough player to potentially get offered a pro contract. So you could go into, the draft is middle of July, let's call it, and you may have 8 guys. You're like, hey, these, some of these guys may get picked high enough to sign, but you have a lot of sophomore eligible guys now. So those guys even have more leverage. So it's like, are we going to lose this guy? Do we need to bring in a guy? And so you kind of have to make those decisions without knowing until middle of July if all of them are going to sign, none of them are going to sign, half. It's. I'm sure there's a lot of stress around that time for you.
Yeah, every coach you see trying to figure out that roster. And we're the only sport, right? We're the only sport
Yep.
where really you can have multiple kids committed for years that you don't know if they're truly going to enroll in school until August
Yep.
1st, or I think it was July 28th this year of that same year. So you might sign a player, and I think that's why, you see some schools, might look and say, "Man, they have more guy I mean, they have a few more guys
Yeah.
committed." But sometimes those schools know that, if you play shortstop and you can hit and you can run, and you look at what just happened in the first round of the
Holy
draft
cow.
this
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
shortstops, um, guys are flying up the board. Murph, you'd have loved to play
Yeah.
today. Just you go 4 or 5
Yeah.
rounds higher, just they're prioritizing the middle of the field. And, so now you got guys that you're counting on. And the reality is this: you're always thinking about, okay, who's going to start on the weekends? Who has a chance to close? Who has a chance to play short? Who can play this? And pretty much any high school kid that we think we're going to be able to count on is going to have a pro
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
If More than likely, if a high school player does not have pro teams giving him opportunities to sign, he's probably not physically ready to make an impact right
Yeah.
away. So then all of our juniors that played every day, it's like everybody that is going to play or did play is in the mix from a pro standpoint. So it gets a little bit dicey there, trying to figure out what's going to happen and trying to read the tea
Yeah.
leaves.
Have you found it's less appealing for some of these high school kids or even the juniors you're talking about to want to sign based on now there's obviously more money in college baseball from a scholarship standpoint, but also NIL?
We think so. I mean, just from a scholarship standpoint alone, I can remember we had, really good players on a college World Series team 6 years ago that were paying, 15,000,
Yeah.
18,000, 20,000 or more dollars per year to go to school after their scholarship because the 11.7. And if you didn't have a great lottery or
Yep.
great institutional financial aid, I mean, 50% was a huge
Yeah.
scholarship.
Yep.
50% and school costs 50, $25,000 would be left. And so now one of the best parts in most schools, and I know there's various schools that might not have tons more money depending on
Yep.
kind of what financial situation they're in, but most schools now have other ways to offer a little more money. And that's been the best thing of being able to make an offer and not having to tell a family that 10 or 12 or $15,000 is due by September 5th. In most cases, you can cover a lot of that. And then the ability to become, be in the positive sum for the best players, I think has helped definitely if their heart was in
Yep.
college to not have to do something that they didn't really want to do because they were in some ways forced to based on the financial scenario. So I think kids are realizing that and seeing guys. I mean, just seeing guys that leave a great league and then are in the major leagues the next year or 2 years later. Hey, guys, that doesn't mean that happens for
Yep.
every player, right? And we know that those guys are in the
Yep.
minority. However, it does
Yep.
happen. And you can arrive in the major leagues in the same amount of time by going to college for 3 years and then signing as you would in signing out of high school, and I think players have seen that, and, I think a lot of them are interested in experiencing college and trying to get multiple experiences in their life.
100%. Like, so let's go out back onto the recruiting trail now. I mean, Karl, you and I sat together and chatted 2 or 3 times this summer. And I think we agree on a lot of stuff, but one of the things we ask everybody are what are those red flags for you when you're out on the trail of the behaviors you see in a player where you're like, "Man, I think this guy's talented. I think he could be a guy for us, but after seeing that, no way."
Yeah, uh, few things. First off, it's like that old saying, "Your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what
Yep.
you're saying." And one of the things that we are looking is how hard does he run when he pops out and, it's probably gonna get caught? How does he bounce from the dugout to the field when he plays catch? Um, how does he move when he's doing some early work? And that's not to make anybody feel uncomfortable. It's just if a player truly is out there because he loves it. We talked a little bit, I think, just the anxiety that some
Yep.
players feel. You know, this is supposed to be
Yep.
fun. And the truth is this, there is a price on any game. That's why people like to
Yep.
watch it, right? The price of winning and losing is, I know for us, every game we play could be RPI,
Yep.
could be standings in the Southeastern Conference, could be a chance to make a postseason. And so there's something on the line every time that we play. And so players have to get used to
Yep.
feeling that. And, some people that maybe don't have it in the right place of I'm playing this because I love it. I'm playing to win. And yes, there's something on the line, but I
Yep.
love that. And the ones that maybe get stressed out or overwhelmed, if we can see that, it might not be something that we want to bring them to a situation that's probably going to have more
100%.
intensity. And then the last thing is just, so thankful. I know so many people are to have just, great parents that supported, spoke positivity at the dinner table at night. My coach wasn't
Yeah.
wrong. the support that they gave my coaches at the dinner table whenever they had a chance to
Yep.
not, and the respect that my family had for the people that were coaching. I think, you get to the point where you can feel maybe negativity. You can feel um, when maybe a stress level is a little bit too high and things like that. And we want to bring people in that are going to have a great experience, that it's going to be positive. That the whole reason why we coach is to try to help people be the best that they
Yep.
can be. And sometimes that help comes with some sort of
Yeah.
criticism,
Yeah.
where you're some honesty and trying to help them in that fashion. And we want to coach a kid who we feel like everybody's in on wanting them to get better and understanding that there's growth, and not having the coaches always be
Yep.
wrong every time they try to encourage or correct something.
So when you are evaluating these guys, like let's start offensively. Like, what are the main things you're looking at when you're evaluating a hitter, whether it be speed, certain things in the swing? Like, what are the basic boxes you're trying to check up front?
I mean, the first thing is how they move and the athleticism, how they turn their body on. And that's tough because I feel like once they get to our level, most of them move pretty well.
Yep.
Most of them are
Yep.
pretty strong, pretty explosive, but strength and really the electricity in their body is something that you really can't help quickly. So how explosive are they? How do they move? Um, do they have mobility to where they can get in good posture and hold good positions longer or not? And really that shows up, and a lot of times it shows up when somebody looks a little bit
Yeah.
smoother
Yeah.
and doesn't look rickety when they do things. So it's a combination of an ability to move smoothly while also being explosive stands out. And then, you know, what do they do when they swing? Does are they swinging to good pitches? Are they taking balls? How are they managing the strike zone? And when they swing, how's their accuracy? Does the ball go
Yep.
forward, or does it go backwards when they swing? A lot of times once we get done looking at the player, a lot of our focus is on what the baseball does, um, when that player's in the
Karl, so
game.
you didn't say exit velo, 60 time, arm strength, now those metrics are important, but I think what you're saying, and I think a lot of parents need to hear this, is that your metrics don't mean anything if it doesn't look the part, if it doesn't look right, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is, right, launch angle, right? Launch angle, if you're somewhere between 10 degrees and 25 degrees, that's probably some sort of line drive at the infielder's chest to over the infielder's head. And when my dad took me to the field in 1986 for the first time to throw me pitches, the goal was to try to hit line drives that were
Yep.
head high,
Yep.
that eventually you get strong enough that they'd go into the outfield, and if you got a little under it, they'd go out of the park. So I think just people that maybe that are the parents' age when we grew up, we just had different ways of quantifying things. And how hard somebody hits the ball is important. And some people, when they look at data from a weekend, might look at that if they're not at the weekend. But after recruiting for a long time, you can kind of tell, hey, is the bat speed okay? Is the ball
Yeah.
coming off pretty well? And there still has to be a high level of skill. What you're talking about, Kyle, is explosion and talent, and there has to be skill that
Yeah.
goes along with it to accompany that talent.
Yeah, and what about on the mound as well? Are you guys I guess you obviously started coaching in an era where we didn't have TrackMan, didn't have Rapsodo. How are you guys kind of implementing that into your evaluation of arms? And what else are you looking for those guys specifically that may not be, I guess, data driven?
Yeah. The things that aren't data driven for sure are the ability to throw strikes, athleticism, and a delivery. I feel like we are starting to really focus on the ability to pick to bases and PFPs. I think one of the things that we've seen from guys that maybe go to the lab to put velocity on is maybe at times they can lose their feel. So you start thinking, you begin with the end in mind. You start thinking, okay, what does a pitcher have to be able to do to win at the Division I level? It's like he's going to have to be able to throw strikes with quality stuff. He's going to have to be able to land an off-speed pitch. He's going to have to be able to throw a ball on purpose. He's going to have to be able to locate a pick. He's going to have to be able to get to the plate more than likely 1-4 or less, depending on his stuff. If his stuff not as great, it might need to be 1-2-5. And field a bunt, throw a strike when a guy's bunting. Like there's just so much more than throwing. And I think the baseball community is getting there a little bit more when the metrics and the velocity was such a big thing, and realizing that 1 or 2 more miles an hour at the expense of being able to do all those other things is maybe not worth it. Now, unfortunately, you have to have certain stuff, and we are looking at release height and induced vertical break and what type of fastball kids throwing, and if it would maybe succeed with a little tweaking and help at our level, and what type of ability to spin a ball that a player has. Those things are all part of it. And I would say, as in anything, it'd probably be a blend of everything to figure out the guys that that might fit the best.
Yeah, there's guys that throw 94, but like you said, Karl, they're going to walk the house every inning. They can't field their position. They can't hold runners. Like that's not a guy, even though he throws 94, that you guys are probably going to be interested in. But there may be a guy that's like low 90s with elite command, with 3 pitches, can throw any of them for a strike. Like you guys are probably going to go with that guy and hope, we can add a few mile an hour velo to him. And then if he's 91, 94 and he's got elite command, he's going to be a good pitcher in college baseball.
It's harder than ever to find guys that throw from the sides now as the velocity train has stepped up. But you look at pretty much most great teams and they have somebody that's a 3/4 guy coming in from the left side, somebody a sidearm guy from the right side. You would much rather have that at 87, 89 than one more guy at 93, 95 if you've already had some, because you're trying to think about moments in the game. And I understand it could be frustrating for a parent and for a young player, because some of these natural things like a release height or extension or some things that create good qualities to a pitch, they sometimes happen pretty naturally for a player. And we've all now learned, right, that 92 can play better than 95 with some other attributes to it. And so then it comes back to what, like, say Coach Baird, just unbelievable baseball coach that was a head coach at Auburn from 1985 to 2000. One of the first things he would look at when he would go evaluate a pitcher is how many swings and misses and how effective is his fastball in the zone. So in looking at a high school player, we've got different ways to quantify that.
So you mean he was looking at in the zone whiff rate back in the 90s? That Karl, that didn't exist back then. That's a new
That's
thing.
why these guys were ahead of their time. But it just didn't. You're right. It just was called something different. But yeah, I mean, baseball really hasn't changed. Who can win in the zone, and then we got to understand that there might be a kid that's listening right now that's 5'9" and 155 pounds his sophomore year, who's going to end up being 6'2" and 185 pounds his senior year. And understanding that, you might have some qualities and just not have the rest of the stuff, but that could always come as well. So you could always learn it's like in basketball when we were young, it wasn't good to be a 6-foot big man in 7th grade, because if you were only going to be 6 feet, you needed to have some guard skills. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. And I understand that could be frustrating sometimes for those wondering why they're not getting recruited or why some people are.
Yeah. I want to hear, I want to hear your perspective on the month of August. I feel like we get bombarded with questions, obviously, and you see everything on the internet now. Talk to us about how August went for you guys in terms of obviously connecting with the top 2027s on your board. But also how long are you seeing that class potentially playing out? Will that go all the way through the end of next summer for you guys, most likely?
Yeah, definitely. First off, we are trying to recruit great players that are fits, that have great character whenever they present themselves. And one of the things that I think you might find, right? We are not recruiting automobiles that don't have emotions. I mean, the beautiful thing about the recruiting is it's a human being thing where you're trying to find connection and fit. And we will sometimes hear of like, hey, he was frustrated that you didn't offer him on August 1st or something. And now there's times, right, where you have a great relationship with somebody that they're connected to. And I always say that's the most important thing for young kids to realize. One of my best friends in college always said, you're always on stage, and kids now, you're always on stage, but you're on stage to your coach or your advisor that's helping you in the college process or your travel coach, because that's who sees you every day. And then if they have a relationship with one of these coaches that really has a powerful backing to it, they might be able to say, hey, this kid is incredible, and we might know more about a personality from some kids on August 1st than we do of others. But part of that process, and the reason why there's a month between the first phone call and the first visit, is so that you can get to know somebody. And just as they're looking forward to a phone call to learn, sometimes an offer doesn't come on the first conversation because you're just trying to feel out, is this a fit culturally for our program? So August, some kids are getting offered on August 1st, some of the best players in the country. Some kids are in a little bit of an interview process. They're interviewing the schools, but they just have to realize that the school's interviewing them as well, because maybe it's an outfielder and you can only take one in America or two, and you're trying to figure out of these handful who might be the best fit. And then a lot of people are going to recruit the top first, and then those guys are going to make decisions, and then you still have a bunch of players that you still want to add. So we've added players in the 2026 class currently, in this spring, summer, and we also had some that were committed, before the rules changed. And I think players just, the more they realize that this process is about finding the right fit, it's tough. It's tough to be patient when you want to know what's going to happen at the end. But it's also doesn't bring joy to compare your recruiting process to somebody else's who might be completely different.
Yeah, I mean, Karl, I think you bring up a great point, and something that we try to talk with all the guys, all the players we work with and the parents, is how important those phone call conversations are. Like, how many times, Karl, have you been on the phone with the kid that you thought, man, this could be a guy for us? Like you said, maybe we're looking at 6 guys to fill 2 spots. Like, we're trying to figure out who those guys are. And you're on the phone with them and you're like, man, this is rough, right? Like, a kid can lose his spot because you're getting on the phone with them and you're asking him questions and it's like, it was a good day. And then nothing else. And you're like, man, this guy, can he hold a conversation? Is he going to fit in the clubhouse? Like,
disinterested. And then we also have to be smart enough to know that some of the best players we ever coached weren't great at having a conversation, but did they have the respect level? Or, maybe you're not great at having a conversation. And let's say a coach says, hey, how about this? I know you're busy. I know you're talking to a bunch of schools. Why don't you just follow up with me? Send me a text in a couple days and let me know when it's good and we'll get back on the phone. That's a test.
Yep.
And they just don't always tell you when the test is coming. And they're trying to say, well, I just asked them one thing on this conversation to text me, or just, can you send me your transcript? Just that one thing. And so even if you're just not every 15, 16-year-old is the best, is the most articulate, but, I always say, have a notebook out for the conversations. Write 1 or 2 things about the coach that you talked to about something that came up. Write down what he asked you. Use that same notebook the next time you get back on that phone call. Oh yeah, I did this. I've already sent him my transcript, and they're trying to pay attention to some of those things, even if you don't talk the best. That's okay.
So yeah, I mean, talk to us a little bit about too. What are some of the biggest draws to the school in your opinion? Obviously, you have the baseball and playing in the SEC, but what are some other things that like you've noticed that families are drawn to when they come there for those recruiting visits?
Yeah, I love visiting a lot of schools around the country, and one of the things that we talk about is a lot of schools have a calling card, right? Like, there are so many great schools out there with something really special to
Yep.
offer, and, just because one has something doesn't mean another one doesn't. One of the things that Auburn has that we really appreciate being a part of, our family and our coaches that talk about it, is is the environment, and it's really the environment in 2 ways. The first is the physical environment. We're an hour and a half from the Atlanta airport. We got great weather. The campus is beautiful. You can walk across campus in 10 or 12 minutes. It connects right to downtown Auburn. It's pretty safe place to
Yep.
live. The football field's in the middle of campus, the baseball field's right next to the football field. That physical environment is great. But really the intangible environment at Auburn. Auburn's still one of those places where, people are really kind to each other. They look out for each other. They're respectful. It's welcoming. We had a kid, I remember Cole Emerson was signed with us and he ended up being a
Yeah.
first round pick and he's doing great. And we love it. So thankful to watch him do so well. And his dad said when they were visiting Auburn, everywhere he went, someone said, "Welcome to Auburn," and would
Yep.
talk to him. And they didn't know he was a baseball player. I think they were visiting during COVID, just
Yeah.
driving through to see what the town was like. And that's something that's really special about Auburn that people look out for each other. And I think the kids that end up falling in love with Auburn fall in love with that
Yep.
spirit. We have something called the Auburn Creed that George Petrie wrote in 1943, and it's really interesting, and I think it sums up a lot of what Auburn's all about. And, we always say you don't always get who you want, you get who
Yep.
you are. So in recruiting, we get people that maybe have the same priorities as maybe as we do and are appreciative of the things that Auburn has to
So,
offer.
Carl, one of the last thing here. Obviously, your guys' staff at Auburn is just full of a bunch of guys with a heck of a lot of experience, whether in the college game, big leagues, professional baseball. Talk about how impactful that is in recruiting because you have a bunch of guys on your staff that have kind of been there, done that with what a lot of these kids want to do in their careers.
Yeah, well, first off, I think, our I'm thankful to be a part of a staff of great men that love the players and want to see what's best for them. And there's a lot of great staffs and men out there that just are truly in it to help players get get better and develop and be the best that they can be. And then it does help. I think it helps. That Gabe Gross, played 7 years in the major leagues and played in a World Series and played in the SEC and Everett Tiford played in the major
Yep.
leagues and was a professional coordinator, pitching coordinator, and then just guys that have been at it a long time. Butch Thompson and Scott Foxhall have been in the SEC and in the college game so
Yep.
long and coached so many great players that they have a lot of street cred out there because they're not going through it for the first time. So it's great to have kids that come and you just know what it's like of being in
Yep.
this league. A lot of experience in this league on our coaching staff, and I think that's helpful for navigating it day to day.
Carl, thanks for doing this, man. Really appreciate having you on the podcast. I think a lot of really good gems, especially that one about the test, sending them the text and, hey, can you respond and get back to me in 2 days? Let's see. Let's see if you can do it. So thanks for doing this, man. And hopefully we can have you on again sometime soon.